Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. The back door clicked once and I froze in bed. My name is Haley and I was 26 that summer. I stared into the dark and told myself I imagined it. Then footsteps crossed the hallway in a slow, deliberate rhythm that was not sleepy. Something in that careful pace felt like hiding, not like a bathroom trip. Ryan always walked heavier on his right side like he was testing the floor. Those were his steps outside our room, measured and way too awake for 3 in the morning. The alarm clock glowed on the nightstand, and I watched the minutes not move. If he was just getting water, why did it sound like a break-in? My chest thumped fast and stupid while I tried to decide whether to call out. We were staying at his family's place by the ocean for a long weekend. His parents snored down the hall, and his older brother shared the next room with his wife. Everyone trusted everyone, or at least that was the script I thought we were following. Lying there, I knew if I woke the house up I would look crazy and jealous. So I stayed quiet and listened instead, which is how everything started to unravel. The boards creaked again, and this time the rhythm was lighter and quicker behind his. I eased up on one elbow and watched a strip of hallway under the bedroom door. A shape passed by in a long shirt and bare legs, and I knew it was his brother's wife. She did not knock on our door or on her husband's door, she just followed Ryan toward the back stairs. That was the first second where my brain yelled, "Run after them because something is wrong." If you are reading this thinking I overreacted, you are not wrong and not right either. In that moment, I felt nosy and suspicious and weirdly responsible for keeping everyone safe. I told myself maybe they both woke up and picked the same time to get air downstairs. I also knew people do not tiptoe like that when nothing is going on. I slid my feet to the floor and decided to move before I could talk myself back into denial. I grabbed the first hoodie on the chair and pulled it over the tank top I slept in. My hands shook so hard I missed the doorknob once and almost laughed because it felt dramatic. I was not sneaking through some movie, I was just a girlfriend in a borrowed room. Still, I turned the knob slow until the latch eased free and the hallway came into view. The house stayed silent, which somehow made every tiny sound I made feel huge. I stepped out and shut the door with my fingers on the edge so it barely touched the frame. Down the hall, the guest room door that belonged to his brother and his wife was wide open. The bed inside was empty, sheets twisted, and the light from the back porch spilled onto the floorboards. I heard whispering, the kind where two people try not to wake anyone yet forget they are not alone. My legs moved on their own down the hall like they had more courage than my head. I stopped at the corner and leaned just far enough to see them by the sliding door. Ryan stood with his hand on the handle, looking over his shoulder like he expected someone to call his name. His brother's wife, Lily, hovered close behind him, her arms folded tight across her chest. They were not touching, but there was barely space between them, and I felt that gap like a dare. He slid the door open, and they stepped out together into the dark porch without one word. Right there, I could have said something normal and just asked where they were going. I watched the door close behind them instead and felt my throat lock up. Some stubborn pride told me if I made a scene and nothing was wrong, I would be the problem. Another voice in my head whispered that couples who are fine do not sneak out with their in-laws. I chose the second voice and eased the corner again because I already knew I would follow. As soon as the latch clicked, I crossed the kitchen and put my hand on the same handle. The glass felt damp under my fingers, and the air beyond was cool enough to raise bumps on my arms. For a second, I thought about locking it and pretending I never saw them, just crawl back into bed. Instead, I slid the door open just enough to slip through and let it whisper shut behind me. The porch boards pressed cold through my bare feet, which somehow made me feel more awake than any coffee. Ryan and Lily were already halfway down the path that led to the sand behind the house. He walked in front, and she stayed close enough that if he stopped, she would run into his back. I crouched near the railing until my heartbeat slowed just enough that I could hear them. Their voices drifted up the slope, broken by wind and distance, but I caught small pieces anyway. The tone was the part that hurt most because it sounded easy and familiar, and mine used to sound like that. I heard Lily say I just needed to get out of that room for a while before I lost it. Ryan answered with something like I get it, and we both needed this, and my stomach twisted. Needed what was the question bouncing around my skull while I watched their backs move farther away. He was supposed to need me, not his brother's wife, in the middle of the night at some secret hour. I straightened up and followed because apparently I needed the truth worse than I needed my pride. The path sloped between low dunes, and I tried to step only where their footprints already pressed the sand. Every few seconds Ryan glanced back over his shoulder, and I dropped lower, praying he would not look too high. One time he paused and Lily touched his arm and said, "Come on, nobody is awake, relax." There was a small laugh in her voice that made my fingers dig into the sand so I would not scream. After that, I kept more distance, which only meant there was more room for my thoughts to spiral. The dunes opened up to the flat stretch near the water, and I dropped behind the last tall ridge. From there, I could see them in profile against the glitter of the waves, standing closer now than before. Lily turned toward him, and I watched her shoulders sag like she was letting out a breath she had held all day. He reached out and touched her arm and left his hand there while they talked too quietly for me to hear. My brain started filling in the words for them, and none of the imagined lines made me feel sane. At one point, she stepped even closer and his head bent, and I could not tell if they kissed. The angle and the shadows hid their mouths, but their bodies leaned together like people who forgot there was an audience. My whole body jolted like someone had grabbed my spine, and for a second I swayed on my knees. A small rock slid under my foot and skittered down the slope, and I slapped my hand over my mouth. They both turned toward the sound, and I went flat against the sand, hoping the waves covered everything. Ryan took a couple of steps up the dune and peered around while Lily called his name soft behind him. I held my breath until my chest hurt and pictured them spotting me crouched there like some deranged spy. He finally shrugged and said probably just a raccoon or something, and my muscles almost gave out with relief. They turned back toward the water and walked a little farther down the shore out of my line of sight. I did not follow that last stretch because I already had more than I knew what to do with. Backing up the dune felt harder than coming down because my legs were shaking and the sand wanted to swallow me. I kept expecting to hear them shout my name or call out asking who was there. Every time the wind hit my ears, I flinched and ducked and moved faster toward the house. By the time I reached the porch, my teeth shook, and I could not tell if it was fear or cold. I slipped back inside and shut the door slow again, listening for any sound from the hallway. The house still felt dead quiet, which meant they were still outside, and I had a few minutes to hide. I hurried down the hall on my toes and slipped into our room and eased the door shut behind me. The clock on the nightstand showed 3:16, and I remember that number like a tattoo now. I dove under the covers and tried to arrange my breathing into the slow, even pattern of someone who never moved. My heart did not get that memo and kept pounding against the mattress like it wanted out. A few minutes later, the porch door slid again, and footsteps came down the hall in that same careful rhythm. I shut my eyes and focused on keeping them relaxed while our bedroom door opened and a draft swept in. The mattress dipped and Ryan climbed in behind me and wrapped an arm around my waist like nothing strange had happened. He smelled like outside and something sharp I could not place, and I wanted to gag or yell or both. Instead, I made a sleepy noise and let him think I was out while my eyes burned into the dark. Lying there with his arm heavy on my waist, I realized this was the first secret I could not unknow. Before that night, I thought trust was a feeling, and that belief had just cracked open. I should have gotten up and left right then, but instead I counted his breaths until the sun came up. Each slow inhale next to my ear felt like a lie practicing for morning, and I knew I would listen anyway. That was the last quiet night of that trip, even though nobody else in the house knew it yet. Ryan got up like he had slept through the whole night. The alarm never rang, yet he swung his legs over the edge and stretched big. His arm left my waist and the mattress rose fast, colder without his weight. I kept my eyes nearly closed and let my breathing stay slow. I wanted to see what he did when he thought I was out. He sat there for a second and rubbed his face with both hands. Most people look rough right after they wake up, but he looked wired. He checked the clock, let out a quiet breath, then glanced back at me. I relaxed my jaw and tried to keep my eyelids steady, terrified they would twitch. The bed shifted again, and his footsteps moved toward the bathroom door. Water rushed to Mom. It later, and the fan rumbled to life behind the wall. I stared at the ceiling now, fully awake, replaying the beach in my head. It felt unreal that the guy humming in the shower had just crept out with his brother's wife. Part of me begged to confront him right then and end the guessing. The rest of me wanted proof I could hold in my hand later. He came out wrapped in a towel and rifled through his duffel near the dresser. I shut my eyes again and shifted a little like someone climbing toward waking. The springs bounced when he sat beside me, and a palm brushed my shoulder. Morning, he murmured, voice soft, fingers tapping my arm. I made a small groan on purpose and rolled onto my back to face him. His hair looked damp and there were tiny grains stuck near his temple. I focused on them so I would not look into his eyes yet. Did you sleep at all? I asked, rubbing my forehead like I had a headache. Ryan shrugged one shoulder and reached for his shirt on the chair. Yeah, pretty solid actually, he answered, casual, not even a pause. That line hit me harder than anything he did on the sand. You know that instant where your body knows before your brain catches up. Hearing him claim a peaceful night felt worse than watching him walk out. I studied his face, trying to catch a twitch or flicker or anything. He only smiled at me and leaned down for a kiss on the cheek. I turned slightly so his lips brushed my skin, not my mouth. It was tiny, probably only obvious to me, but his mouth stalled a second. You okay? He asked, hand resting lightly near my collarbone now. Just tired, I answered, swinging my legs off the bed too fast. If I stayed under those sheets any longer, I was going to scream. In the bathroom mirror, my own expression scared me more than the night before. I looked normal enough, but behind my eyes there was this sharp buzzing. I splashed water on my face and let it drip down my neck. For a second I practiced saying, I saw you go down to the beach. Every time I tested the line, my throat closed up again. By the time I came out, he was already dressed and lacing his sneakers. His phone sat near his wallet on the dresser, screen face down. He kept glancing at it like he was waiting for something to light up. That little tick lodged itself in my brain and refused to move. Your family up yet? I asked, bending to grab my own shoes. Probably, he said, tying the last knot and standing up fast. Smells like coffee out there, he added, sniffing the air with a grin. The way he said it felt like a performance, like he was overacting normal. Come on, my mom will flip if we miss breakfast, he joked, heading for the door. I followed because wandering off alone would draw more attention than I wanted. Voices floated from the kitchen as we walked down the short hall. His dad laughed at something on the television and a chair scraped back. Lily's voice rose once, light and bright, then dropped again. That sound made the hairs on my arms stand up more than the shower had. I grabbed Ryan's elbow for a second just to steady my balance. We stepped inside, and everyone already sat around the table. Lily stood at the counter, pouring coffee with too much enthusiasm. Her hair was pulled up, still slightly damp at the ends. When she turned and saw us, she smiled wide enough to show every tooth. It was the kind of grin people use when they have something to hide. Look who finally made it, Ryan's brother joked, nudging an empty stool with his foot. He looked groggy, eyes heavy, voice rough like he really had knocked out. I scanned his face for any sign he knew what happened a few hours earlier. Nothing there, just a guy reaching for toast and smirking at his younger brother. The contrast made my stomach flip in a way I could not untangle. Ryan dropped into a seat beside me and reached for a mug. Crumbs scattered as his dad cracked another joke about vacation appetites. Lily slid a cup toward me across the table with a little flourish. You sleep okay? She asked, head tilted, watching my reaction way too closely. That question landed sharper than if she had called me a liar. As well as I could, I answered, wrapping both hands around the mug. I woke up once, heard someone walking around, I added, letting the line hang. There was the tiniest hitch in her shoulders before she shrugged it off. Yeah, I got up for water, she said, reaching for the jam with steady fingers. The answer came too quick, like she had practiced it in her head. Ryan's spoon paused midair for half a second, then clinked against his plate. Yeah, I think I used the bathroom around then, he threw in, eyes on his food. I watched the two of them not look at each other while they talked. Everyone else seemed oblivious, chewing and passing things around. I felt like the only one noticing the weird choreography at that table. If you are wondering why I did not explode right there, I ask Mize. Elf that too. In that moment it felt like I was the only one without a script. If I shouted now, I would be the one who ruined the family trip. They had already laid down their cover story without even consulting me. Calling them out meant picking a fight nobody else was ready to see. Ryan's brother, let's call him Matt, wiped his mouth and leaned back. Man, I slept like a rock, he said, stretching his arms above his head. Didn't hear a thing all night, he added, chuckling. Lily's fingers tightened around her fork for a heartbeat before she relaxed again. I caught that flinch and tucked it away like a small recorded clip. Guess I'm just a light sleeper, I said, taking a slow sip. I let my gaze slide between Lily and Ryan, then back to my cup. The air around the three of us felt heavier, even though no one else reacted. Lily launched into a story about the drive-in, loud and animated. Ryan laughed along a little too hard, as if to drown out my last comment. From the outside, we probably looked like any group sharing breakfast on vacation. Inside my skull, everything felt tilted, like the room had shifted an inch. I watched Lily lean over to refill Ryan's coffee without being asked. Her hand brushed his wrist briefly, a tiny contact that made my jaw clench. He did not pull away nearly fast enough for someone supposedly half asleep. Their eyes met during that movement, quick and sharp, then darted apart. It was so fast I almost convinced myself I imagined it. Then I remembered the path to the sand and the way they walked in sync. My appetite vanished in one clean sweep and the toast on my plate blurred. I pushed it around with my knife just to look busy. Everything good? Ryan's mom asked, glancing at me from across the table. Yeah, just not super hungry yet, I replied, forcing a small smile. She nodded and turned back to some story about neighbors and lawn drama. The normal chatter washed over me without sticking anywhere. All I really heard were the gaps where Ryan and Lily stayed quiet. Looking back, that breakfast was the first real test, not the beach. On the shore, they had no idea anyone was listening, which made it raw. Here they knew I was present, awake, and close enough to hear them slip. Watching them work together to patch over the night rattled me. It felt less like a mistake and more like a partnership in lying. When the meal finally wound down, chairs scraped and plates stacked. Ryan popped up fast and grabbed his phone off the counter. His thumb moved over the screen before it even buzzed. Lily checked hers at the same moment, standing near the sink. They both looked down together and my chest tightened again. "Wanna walk down to the water later?" Ryan asked, sliding his phone into his pocket. The question sounded innocent and sweet on the surface. Maybe, I answered, stacking a few plates and carrying them to the sink. In my head, I pictured that same stretch of sand from a few hours earlier. I knew if I went with him, I would see ghosts beside us the whole time. He came up behind me while I rinsed off a plate. His hand brushed the small of my back in an easy, familiar gesture. To anybody else, it would have looked affectionate and normal. All I felt was a distance that had not existed yesterday. His touch no longer matched the story running in my head. Lily stepped next to us to grab a towel, too close for my nerves. "Sorry squeezing through," she said, her shoulder grazing mine. She flashed another bright, friendly smile that did not reach her eyes. Her reflection in the window met mine for a second and dropped. It felt like we were both waiting to see who would break first. I finished at the sink and wiped my hands on a dishcloth. Ryan started talking about maybe renting boards later, voice light again. His parents argued about whether apps and tides and the best time to go. Lily chimed in here and there, never mentioning the middle of the night. Every normal word they spoke felt like another layer over a rotten core. When I finally stepped away from the kitchen, the house felt too small. I wandered down the hall toward our room under the excuse of grabbing sunscreen. Once I reached the doorway, I stopped and listened again. Laughter floated from behind me, bright and harmless on the surface. Under it, I heard my own pulse pounding, counting down to the next move. I only grabbed his phone because he left it unlocked. The shower roared down the hall, and his ringtone lay silent on the dresser. For a full 10 seconds, I just stared at the screen and cursed my own curiosity. If I touched it, I crossed a line I could not uncross. Then I remembered their voices whispering outside, and my hand moved anyway. My thumb hovered above the glass like it was hot. I told myself I was not spying, I was protecting my own life. That sounds dramatic now, but in that moment it felt true. I picked it up and the home screen blinked awake without a cod. He trusted the room, he did not expect me to be the problem. The messages icon pulsed with a fresh alert. My chest jolted so hard, I nearly dropped the phone onto the carpet. Part of me wanted to press back and pretend I never saw it. The other part pictured him and Lily at 3 in the morning again. I tapped the icon and watched the conversation list appear. Her name sat right at the top with a little red heart. Not under a nickname, not buried behind group chats, just high and obvious. I actually laughed once, a small ugly sound that surprised me. Of course she was pinned, of course she was first. Every doubt I had at breakfast lined up in a neat row. I opened their thread and the newest bubble hit me in the face. Lily, you made this morning less unbearable, thank you. His reply sat underneath, sent a few minutes before his shower. Ryan, anytime, last night helped me too. My stomach twisted so fast I had to sit down on the bed. If you have ever scrolled something you do not want to see, you know the feeling. Your thumb moves on its own while your brain yells to stop. The screen filled with late-night timestamps and quick short lines. Can't sleep again. Me either, wanna sneak out. Those words were from days before the beach trip, not just last night. They talked about long drives, about needing a break, about our time. Every time she complained about feeling suffocated, he answered instantly. Every time he mentioned feeling stuck, she sent hearts and inside jokes. It read like two people in a relationship that did not officially exist. I kept going, chasing the first moment where they crossed a line. Older messages sat farther down, stacked across weeks and weeks. Still thinking about that hug on the deck. Same, we should not do that again, but I want to. That one made my throat close because it was not just words anymore. I flicked up and found another cluster from a weekend I could place. I knew the date because I had a photo from that night on my phone. While I stood in a kitchen with his mom, they were texting under the table. Wish we could be alone for real. Someday, for now we take what we can get. I want to say I stopped there and respected myself, but I did not. I searched for my own name with the little bar at the top. Nothing came up, not even a single mention, not one emoji. They had built a whole separate world, and I was not even a side note. That realization hurt more than any physical thing they could have done. A new bubble loaded in right as I thought that. Lily again, she looked suspicious at breakfast, do you think she knows? I froze so hard my fingers went numb against the glass. My heart slammed so loud I could barely hear the shower anymore. A drop of water hit the tub and sounded like gunfire. His answer popped up beneath hers, timestamp while I rinsed dishes earlier. Ryan, she is fine, just woke up once, I covered it. Covered it? Like I was some spill he wiped off the floor. I clenched my teeth so hard my jaw ached. He added another line that snapped something in me. If she ever finds out, I will handle it. Handle it, not fix it, not stop it, just manage the fallout. I did not feel like a girlfriend in that moment. I felt like a problem on his to-do list. My thumb hovered over the camera icon for screenshots. Part of me pictured confronting him later with the whole thread saved. Another part worried he would notice and start deleting faster. I ended up memorizing the worst lines instead, burning them into my brain. To this day, I could write them out word for word. Water shut off down the hall and the pipes rattled. That sound yanked me back into my body all at once. I closed the thread, heart racing, and flipped to his home screen. Hands trembling, I placed the phone exactly where it had been. Same angle, same distance from his wallet, like nothing touched it. I forced myself to breathe in through my nose and out slowly. My reflection in the dresser mirror looked almost calm, which felt insane. I smoothed the blanket once, just for something to do with my hands. The bathroom door opened, and steam rolled into the hallway. I sat down cross-legged on the bed and grabbed my own phone. Hey, he called out, walking back toward the room. His hair dripped onto his shoulders, towel slung low around his hips. You coming out with us later or still hiding in here? I flicked my screen on so it looked like I had been texting. Yeah, just checking something, I answered, forcing my voice steady. He dropped his phone into his bag without even glancing at it. That carelessness almost made me laugh again, sharp and bitter. If he knew how close I had come to copying everything, he might lock it. Instead, he rummaged for clean clothes and talked about lunch plans. My ears heard each word, my brain replayed if she ever finds out. Everything good? He asked, tugging on a shirt, watching me. I looked up and met his eyes for the first time since breakfast. There was concern there, maybe even guilt, or I wanted to believe that. Fine, I said, thumb swiping nothing on my screen. Tired, that's all. That answer tasted like metal on my tongue. I was already lying just to keep the peace he valued so much. He crossed the space between us and brushed my knee with his fingers. We can just chill today if you want, he offered, sounding thoughtful. I flinched at the word we, hearing a third person inside it now. He did not seem to notice the tiny recoil, or he pretended not to. He leaned down, kissed my forehead, and grabbed his keys off the nightstand. Mom wants to hit the boardwalk, he added, heading for the door. You sure you are up for it? I nodded because staying alone with my thoughts sounded worse. The door clicked behind him and the room went quiet again. I finally let out the breath I had been holding since the shower started. On the other side of that wall, his phone sat inches from his wallet. From here it looked harmless, just another piece of his life. Now I knew it was the place where our relationship had already shifted. I tipped more wine into my glass just to keep my fingers steady. Everyone talked over each other about nothing and my ears buzzed. Ryan sat close enough that our knees almost touched, but he never brushed mine. Across from us, Lily laughed at something Matt said and avoided my eyes. I stared at the rim of my glass and realized I was done pretending. Long day, Ryan's dad joked, lifting his drink toward the center. To family time, his mom added, smiling around the table. They clinked and sipped and tried to make it another cozy vacation night. My throat felt tight as I swallowed, the wine sliding down like sand. If I did not speak now, I knew I never would. Matt nudged Ryan with his elbow and grinned. At least you two actually woke up on time today, he teased. Thought you were turning into early birds or something. Lily's fork scraped her plate too fast and she coughed once. The sound sliced straight through my patience. I did not sleep great, I said, setting my glass down hard. The words came out before I fully planned them, which honestly helped. Kept waking up all night, kept hearing people move around. Conversation dipped for a second, just a little drop in noise. Ryan glanced sideways like he wanted to kick my ankle. You should have taken something, his mom replied, frowning at her plate. First night in a different bed always throws me off too. Yeah, I answered, keeping my gaze on Lily, not her. But this was different, I actually saw who it was. My pulse hammered so loud I almost missed the silence that followed. Lily lifted her water halfway to her mouth and froze mid-movement. Ryan shifted in his chair and cleared his throat once. Matt kept chewing, completely out of the loop for one last second. Who was walking around? He asked, finally catching up. His question landed like a challenge right in front of me. I woke up around 3, I said, voice steady somehow. I watched 2 people head down the hall to the back door. I let the moment stretch and forced myself not to look away. It was you, Ryan, and you, Lily, you walked out together. The word together hung there like a dare. Matt stopped chewing. His fork stayed halfway to his mouth, knuckles going tight around the handle. Ryan let out a short laugh that sounded way too sharp. Come on, he said, hands lifting like this was ridiculous. We just went outside for a minute, could not sleep. Lily set her glass down too carefully and folded her hands. Yeah, I felt restless. I asked him to walk with me, she added quickly. It was just a walk, nothing dramatic, fresh air, that's all. Her eyes flicked toward his parents, then back to her plate. I watched her sell that line and felt something hot crawl up my neck. It was not just a stroll, I answered louder than I meant to. His dad's gaze snapped to my face and stayed there. You two were whispering before you opened the door, I continued, not stopping now. And you did not say anything to anyone, you just snuck out. That word finally made Ryan's mom set her fork down. Snuck out, she repeated, looking between them. I mean, Ryan started, rubbing the back of his neck. It was late, we did not want to wake the whole place. That is all this is, Lily chimed in a little too fast. If this is about last night, you are making it weird. That line lit a fuse in my chest. I leaned forward, elbows on the table, wine forgot. It is not just about last night, I said, eyes on them both. I know this was not the first time you went out alone. The way their faces changed, then told his parents more than my words. Matt looked from me to Lily like he had misheard. What do you mean not the first time? His voice dropped lower. Ryan exhaled hard and pushed his plate away a few inches. You are tired, you are twisting this into something it is not, he insisted. That little gaslight attempt almost made me laugh out loud. Really? I asked, sitting back, feeling my hands shake under the table. Then why did you tell her this morning that last night helped you too? Ryan's head snapped toward me, eyes wide for the first time all day. Lily went pale, fingers twisting together in her lap. It hit them then that I knew more than just hallway shadows. How would you know what I told her? Ryan demanded, leaning forward. His tone cut the room in half and his dad stiffened. You two should answer that before you worry about my part, I shot back. I turned to his parents instead of him, which hurt him more. Your son and your daughter-in-law have been sneaking around for a while. Lily slammed her napkin onto the table and pushed her chair back. Okay, you know what, yes, we went out, we talked, we hugged, we kissed, she burst out. There, you got your big moment. The words crashed over the table and everything else stopped. Even the faint noise from the television cut off in my head. Matt scraped his chair back so fast it almost tipped. You kissed my brother, he said, staring at her like she was a stranger. His hands shook as he gripped the chair back, breathing hard. You kissed my brother and you tell her like a joke. His voice cracked on the last word and it sliced right through me. It was not like that, Ryan shot back, rising halfway from his seat. It was one stupid night, it got out of hand, we were upset. So you went to her, I cut in, pointing straight at Lily. Out of everyone in this house, you picked your brother's wife. My own voice did not sound like mine anymore. His mom covered her mouth, eyes huge, tears already welling. His dad pushed his chair back slowly, like he needed more space to breathe. Matt looked between them, then at me, as if waiting for someone to say this was a prank. Nobody did. The only sounds were shallow breaths and the faint hum of the fridge. You have been, what, flirting, playing around, how long? Matt asked, jaw clenched. His gaze landed on Lily and stayed there this time. She wiped at her eyes, smearing her mascara, and looked down. It started months ago, she whispered, barely audible. I felt the room lurch, even though my feet were still under the table. Months, his dad repeated, voice flat and stunned. In my house, with your brother right there, with your girlfriend right there. Each word dropped heavier than the last one. Lily nodded once, shoulders shaking, no excuses left. Ryan stared at the table like the grain pattern had answers. It was not some big affair, Ryan tried again, desperate now. It was talking, meeting up, kissing a few times, that is it. Do you hear yourself? I asked, laughing once, humorless. You have a whole category for levels of betrayal now. I saw his mom flinch when I said betrayal. Matt rounded the table, eyes locked on his little brother. You touch my wife, he said, voice low and broken. Ryan stood all the way up, chair scraping loudly behind him. Matt, I am sorry, I am so sorry, I messed up, he started. He reached out like he might grab his brother's arm. Matt jerked away like the touch burned. Do not, he snapped, chest heaving. You did not trip into this, you planned walks, you sent messages, you lied. His gaze cut toward me. Did you know about all of it? He asked. I know enough, I answered, feeling my nails dig into my palms. I know they talked about needing their own time, about taking what they could get. Both of them flinched at that phrase because they knew exactly when they typed it. I did not need to explain how I found out. Their reaction told the whole story for everyone watching. His mom started crying in earnest, shoulders shaking as she reached for a tissue. His dad paced once behind his chair, then slammed his hand on the table. You are under my roof, you bring this into my family, he barked at them. Lily sobbed harder and covered her face with her hands. Ryan just stood there swallowing, eyes wet but still defensive. I never meant for it to go this far, he said, voice rough. We were talking, we felt trapped, we messed up. He looked at me, finally, really looked, like he remembered I was the girlfriend in the room. I still love you, he added, stepping toward me. That sentence landed like an insult, not comfort. You love me and you do this with her, I replied, shaking my head. You go behind my back with someone who shares your last name. I pushed my chair back, needing distance, air, anything. The legs scraped across the floor and everyone jumped. That sound felt like the only honest thing in the whole house. Do not make this just about you, he snapped, suddenly turning on me. We have been struggling, you know that, you pull away, you shut down. The way he flipped it almost knocked the breath out of my lungs. So now my boundaries were part of his excuse. That spin move told me everything I needed about where this was heading. Lily lifted her head, tear-streaked, voice wrecked. Stop, she whispered to him. Do not blame her for this is ours. For 1 second she finally sounded like she understood the damage. It was almost the only decent thing I ever heard her say. Matt laughed once, short and bitter, hands running through his hair. Ours, he repeated, staring at her. Ours, like some little secret romance behind my back, that is what this is now. He looked wrecked, and I felt a sting of sympathy under my own anger. We were both losing something at that table, just in different ways. Ryan's mom reached for Matt's arm and missed as he stepped away. Everyone needs to calm down, she pleaded, voice thin. Maybe we all take a minute, talk like adults. Nobody moved toward calm, not even close. The air felt charged enough that one more sentence would blow it again. I realized I did not want to sit there and listen to them negotiate. Negotiate what exactly? How to keep me quiet, how to keep the family image. My chair stood at an odd angle now, halfway pulled out. Ryan watched me like I was about to ruin his life more than he had. He still did not get that I was already living in the wreckage. I am done for tonight, I said, voice low but clear. I cannot sit here and act like this is some little misunderstanding. I stepped away from the table and felt every pair of eyes on my back. Behind me, Matt started yelling again, voice cracking on Lily's name. In front of me, the hallway stretched empty and dark like an exit sign. I did not slow down until I reached our room. Voices exploded behind me, overlapping, sharp, bouncing off the walls. Matt shouted something I could not untangle and Lily sobbed louder. Ryan's mom called for everyone to calm down and nobody listened. I shut the door and finally let my own knees buckle. The suitcase sat in the corner, half unzipped from earlier. I grabbed it and yanked it onto the bed with more force than needed. Clothes went in fast, not folded, just grabbed and shoved. I wanted out more than I wanted, organized piles. Every zip and rustle covered another shout from the dining room. Where are you going? Ryan's voice hit my back before I heard the door open. I froze with a handful of shirts clutched tight. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him, jaw tight. The noise from the rest of the house dulled to a muffled roar. I'm leaving. I did not dress it up, I just dropped the words between us. He stared at the suitcase, then at my hands, then at my face. You are not serious, he said, pushing his fingers through his hair. This is a mess, but we can work through it. I shoved the shirts down and reached for my jeans on the chair. Oh, now it is a mess, I answered, pulling them on with jerky movements. When you were sneaking around, it was what comfort. He flinched at that word like it cut deeper than anything at dinner. Good, I thought, at least something is finally landing. He moved closer, palms raised like I was some skittish animal. Look, I screwed up, I am not denying that. His breath hitched, and for once he did not sound rehearsed. But ending everything tonight here, that is insane. He glanced at the door like he wanted a way out of this room. Insane was texting her about handling me if I found out. I heard my own voice shake and refused to soften it. Insane was kissing your brother's wife behind everyone's back. I grabbed my charger off the nightstand and tossed it into the bag. He watched the cord coil like it was a rope snapping between us. You read my messages, he said, eyes narrowing. Like that was the real crime here, not the content. Yes, I answered, meeting his stare without blinking. Your phone was open, you handed me the truth. My heart hammered, but there was relief under the panic now. He dragged in a long breath and leaned against the dresser. Okay, then you saw I never planned some big future with her. His voice got louder as he went, like volume could rewrite history. It was venting bad choices, we were stuck, we reached for each other. He spread his hands like that explanation should sound reasonable. It was not venting on the beach at 3 in the morning. The image hit me again, their silhouettes by the waterline. You do not touch someone that way if it is nothing. I zipped the main compartment halfway and paused. Do you have any idea how stupid you made me look tonight? He pushed off the dresser and closed the distance between us. You did not look stupid, he said, voice dropping. You looked hurt and I did that and I hate it. His fingers hovered near my shoulder without quite landing. I will do therapy, I will block her, whatever you want. For a second my resolve slipped, I will not lie. There is a part of you that wants tea. Oh, believe the fixer version. The one who finally sees it, finally chooses you like they should have. I watched his face and tried to picture trusting it again. The image wobbled, then collapsed. If I was not your brother's wife, would you have stopped? The question came out before I knew I was asking it. He blinked, thrown off, and that tiny pause told me plenty. I do not know, he admitted, almost whispering. That honesty hurt worse than any denial. I finished the zipper in one long pull. That is my answer, I said, adjusting the strap. His hand shot out and caught the handle of the suitcase. Just wait until morning, he begged, voice rough. We will talk when everyone is calmer. They are ripping each other apart out there because of you too. I jerked the handle free and planted my feet. If I stay, I become part of the cover story. His jaw clenched and he looked toward the wall facing the hallway. Matt shouted again, something about lawyers, something about betrayal. You do not have to protect them, Ryan insisted, stepping closer. You do not owe my brother or my parents anything. I am not doing this for them, I snapped, heat rising up my neck. I am doing this so I can look at myself tomorrow. That was the first time I felt more solid than shaky. He ran both hands down his face like he could wipe the night away. You are overreacting, he muttered, words slipping out without thought. He realized it as soon as he said it and closed his eyes. Wait, I did not mean it like that. But he did, and we both knew. Every time I raised a concern, you called me dramatic, I reminded him. When I noticed your messages, when I felt you pulling away. I slung my bag over my shoulder and let the strap bite. This is the first time I believe my own instincts more than your version. My pulse finally matched the rhythm of that decision. Where will you even go? He asked, voice small now. The confident tone from earlier was gone, stripped away. There is a motel near the highway, I answered, already picturing it. I can book a ride, I have my card, I will manage. His eyes widened like I had threatened to fall off a cliff. He moved toward the door and planted himself there. You are not walking out like this, he said, shoulders squared. I will not let you storm off into the middle of the night. I stared at him for a long second, then let out a slow breath. You do not own my legs, I replied, voice flat. We stood there facing each other, neither moving. Outside, a cabinet slammed, followed by Ryan's mom sobbing louder. His dad barked something I could not catch, low and furious. The whole house felt like it tilted under the weight of our choices. I stepped forward anyway and reached for the doorknob. He did not shift. I raised my chin and met his eyes. Move, I said. He held my gaze another beat, then finally stepped aside. His shoulders dropped like something inside him snapped. The hallway felt narrower than before as I walked toward the front. Matt stood near the entrance to the dining room, breathing hard. Lily sat slumped in her chair, face in her hands, shoulders shaking. His parents hovered behind them, looking years older than this morning. Every head turned when they noticed my suitcase. I am not staying, I told them, keeping my voice steady. Ryan hovered a few steps behind me like a shadow. His mom reached toward me, then pulled back halfway. You do not have to go tonight, she said, voice trembling. This is not your fault. I know it is not, I replied, and that surprised her. But if I sleep here, I wake up part of this story physically. I tightened my grip on the handle and forced myself not to cry. I care about you all, but I need distance. My throat burned, but the words felt clean. Matt looked at me with raw eyes, then at his brother. You are really leaving because of what they did? He asked. Yes, I answered, meeting his gaze. I cannot share space with people who used me as cover. His expression twisted, somewhere between gratitude and rage. Good, he rasped, turning back to Lily. You see that? She has more self-respect than both of us combined. Lily let out a broken noise and curled in on herself. I forced myself not to step toward her, not to comfort. She already had enough blurred lines. Ryan's dad opened the front door for me without a word. Cool air rushed in and hit my face, sharp and grounding. Text us when you get where you are going, he said quietly. There was no anger in it, just tired concern. I nodded, not trusting my voice, and stepped outside. The night felt different than it had on the beach. Back then I was sneaking, hiding, watching someone else's secret. Now each step down the porch felt loud and deliberate. Ryan followed me to the driveway, hands jammed into his pockets. The house glowed behind us, full of shouting and history. You are really getting into car with a stranger instead of staying with me? He asked. He sounded offended, like this was an insult to his protection. I am safer with someone who did not lie to my face for months, I answered. That came out harsher than I planned, but I did not regret it. He winced like I had actually struck him. I will sleep on the couch, he offered, words tumbling out. I will not even talk to her, I will shut my phone off. He gestured back toward the house like he could rebuild walls by hand. We can get through tonight and talk tomorrow, please. His voice cracked on that last word, and I almost caved. Almost. Then I pictured him typing, if she ever finds out, I will handle it. I pictured Lily thanking him for making her morning less unbearable. Those lines sat between us heavier than my suitcase. I already heard your version, I said softly. My phone buzzed in my pocket with a rideshare notification. Car arriving in 2 minutes, the screen announced in bright letters. That tiny pop-up felt more real than anything in his promises. I pocketed the phone and looked up at him. This is me handling it for myself, I added. Headlights swung into the driveway and washed over us. The driver rolled down the passenger window and called my name. Yeah, that is me, I answered, lifting a hand. Ryan reached for the suitcase again, like muscle memory. I pulled it away and walked toward the car without looking back. Wait, he called out, footsteps crunching on the gravel. I stopped at the rear door, one hand on the handle. He caught up and stood a foot away, breathing hard. If you leave now, I do not know what happens next, he said. His eyes searched my face like he could still find a yes. Me neither, I admitted, and that was the honest part. I just know what happens if I stay, because I saw it already. He opened his mouth like he had one more big speech ready. I did not let him deliver it. Good night, Ryan, I said, and climbed into the car. The door shut with a solid thud that felt final. He stood there in the shrinking slice of window, lips moving. I could not hear him over the engine starting and the radio mumbling low. The car backed out and his outline got smaller in the rear view. For once, I did not twist around to keep him in sight. Rough evening, the driver asked, glancing at me briefly. I let out a short breath that almost sounded like a laugh. Something like that, I answered, tugging the seat belt across my chest. He nodded once and focused on the road again. The quiet hummed around us in a strangely peaceful way. My phone lit up over and over in my lap. Preview banners stacked on top of each other with his name. I am sorry. Please answer. Can we talk? I turned the screen face down without opening a single one. If I read them, I knew I would start justifying again. He was good with words, that was part of the problem. This was the first time I chose not to let his version lead. The silence between us felt more honest than any paragraph. I booked a room on my phone before we even reached town. Click confirm, done. Some cheap place off the main road with vacancy. Nothing special, but that was the point. I did not need pretty, I needed space. When we pulled into the motel lot, my body felt drained. I thanked the driver and hauled my bag out of the back seat. The office clerk barely looked up as I checked in. A key slid across the counter with a room number printed on a sleeve. It felt like being handed a reset button on a flimsy card. Inside the room, I dropped the suitcase near the wall. The bed looked too neat, too untouched, like it was waiting for a decision. I sat on the edge and finally let my shoulders sag. The quiet in there was different from the quiet at the house. This one did not expect me to play referee. I thought about calling my parents and decided against it. They would worry, and I did not have the energy to retell everything. Instead, I opened a group chat with 2 friends back home. Typed erase, typed again, then finally sent it. I walked out on him tonight, it is bad. The replies came fast, a flood of concern and outrage. Where are you? Are you safe? Do you want us to drive up? Their words made the back of my eyes sting in a new way. I am at a motel near the beach, I wrote. I am okay, just shaking. He cheated with his brother's wife. I watched the typing bubbles appear and disappear like heavy breaths. Then one message popped up that cut through all the noise. I am proud of you for leaving and not letting them spin it. That line hit harder than any apology I could have gotten tonight. Because that was the secret fear under everything. That I would be painted as the one who blew it up. Reading someone else say I was right to walk grounded me. I cried for real then, shoulders heaving, breath stuttering. I let it happen. No hiding in a pillow, no trying to stay quiet. Any neighbors on the other side of TH? Iwa would just have to deal. Once the wave passed, I wiped my face with the back of my hand. The shaking eased, replaced by a strange, tired clarity. Sitting at the small table by the window, I opened my phone again. Not to read his messages. To read my own notes from earlier in the trip. Little lists of places we wanted to check out together. Every line felt like it belonged to a different couple. I could have deleted all of it right then. Photos, plans, the whole thread of our time here. Instead, I backed out and opened a blank screen. My fingers hovered for a second, then started moving. Throwaway account because my life exploded at the beach house tonight. That is how this whole thing started, by the way. Not at 3 in the morning on the sand. Not at the dinner table when everything finally broke open. It started when I chose to write it instead of just replaying it alone. When I decided strangers might see the pattern more clearly than I could. As I type this now, the motel air unit hums in the background. My bag sits half open on the floor just like my life. His messages keep flashing at the top of the screen as new ones roll in. I still have not opened a single one, and that feels important. For once, the only narrative I am listening to is my own.